Good morning. I'm not sure if we're live. That's it. I think we're live. I got the kind of you're starting hanging on my screen and not going anywhere. And I never quite know when we are live. Is it when that comes up or is it when it disappears? So I'll start off with what I was going to start off with, which is good morning, everyone. And thank you very much for joining us on November's webinar from VentureForge. Lots and lots of familiar names in the list today, but some new ones. So we'll start off with some very quick introductions to who we are, the business, what we do, and what this webinar is all about. So good morning to you that are new. I'm Andy Banks. I'm CEO of an Amazon agency called VentureForge, where we are the commercial partner for Amazon brands on seller, vendor, or supporting them on advertising. And we work with some of the largest brands in the UK and Europe, typically working with brands that are between 2 and 10, sometimes up to £15 million of annual revenue on Amazon. We've got a fantastic team of people in the business. We're now a team of 20. We've got some of those fantastic people on the call with us today. I guess without further ado, Travis, unfortunately, you're top right on the screen. I don't know how everybody else is seeing you, but you're top right for me. So I'll hand over to you first to say good morning.
No, that's awesome. Thanks, Andy. Hey, everyone. Looking forward to speaking about this webinar. I'm Travis. I'm head of vendor services here. I've literally been here probably about 5 odd weeks, 6 odd weeks. So still getting to grips with the VentureForge way of doing things, but really loving it and enjoying it. And hopefully we can teach some things today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Trav. Jake, not sure it's good news that Becca's going last or you're going second. But say good morning.
Morning all. So I'm Jake. I'm one of the paid advertising managers at VentureForge, and my job is all things PPC and paid on Amazon. So just using and leveraging advertising to help deliver growth for all of our clients here at VentureForge.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jake. And last but not least, Becca.
Hi everyone, I'm Becca, so I am Head of Seller Services at VentureForge. I've not been with the business 5 weeks like Trav. I'm at 4 years. I've been working in the Amazon space for over 10 years now, and looking forward to talk to you guys this morning about conversion.
Fantastic, thank you, Becca. And you stole my thunder. That's the whole webinar title. That was my next point, was to introduce the webinar. But thank you for that. So yeah, today we're talking all about mastering Amazon conversion rates and conversion rate optimization. Quite a broad topic, quite a lot to get into. We've deliberately brought people from seller, from vendor, from advertising here today to share their thoughts and answer a few questions that I've got set for them. But before we jump straight into the conversation, a couple of bits of housekeeping. First of all, your questions. This is not really about us. It's not a sales pitch from us. It's about us sharing our knowledge and sharing our expertise. And there's no better way to do that than the questions that we want from you guys in the audience. So please do start getting the questions coming in. We will get to those at the end. Normally the last 15 minutes, we get into those Q&As. It depends how much Trav, Jake and Becca have got to say throughout this morning. We might get to those questions quicker, but we'll always get to them at the end. And then we also have a quick poll. We're keen to find out about you, the audience, and where you find yourself in terms of conversion rate optimization on Amazon. So hopefully we've got things prepped. I can see it. Fantastic. There we go. Well, this is like a really smooth running machine now. We've done this a few times, 15 times I think now. But interested to hear from you in the audience, which of the following areas do you find most challenging when it comes to improving conversion rates on Amazon? We often get some quite surprising responses on these, so sometimes less so. It'd be interesting to see how this comes through, and if we can tailor the conversation today, we will do a little bit to try and help people out where we can. How's that coming in? Where's that poll disappeared to? Yeah, we normally well. Dare I say, maybe the questions kind of led us down a particular route. There's two clear messages coming through. People finding it challenging optimizing product listings and running effective ad campaigns. Now, advertising is not something I personally normally talk about in a conversion rate optimization topic, but I know when we get onto some of Jake's point later on, it'll come to life a little bit more where we are talking about ads today. Interesting result, but fundamentally it's coming down to optimizing product listings and advertising. A couple of people, pretty much even then across the board in increasing sales through A/B testing, understanding customer behavior and feedback, which I personally find really challenging on Amazon, being so distant from customer behavior and feedback and some of that data being hidden. Equal then balance across improving the mobile shopping experience and managing inventory and availability to boost conversions. So I think we might have a topic, right? Optimizing product listings, running effective ad campaigns, and how you increase sales through A/B testing. So without further ado, guys, let's start getting some questions in your direction. Let's get the conversation moving. It's probably no surprise I've prepped a few bits that I want to kind of ask first of all. Let's start off with something I guess, pretty generic to get the conversation moving. What is conversion? What is conversion rate optimization? And why is it important to an Amazon business?
Yeah. So from our point of view, conversion is literally the amount of views on a detail page that converts into a sale. That's pretty much quite obvious. The importance of it is if you can convert easily, you don't need to spend extra funds on advertising, getting the awareness there. You know, most of the time customers that will look at your page will convert into a sale either way. You don't really need to sell them on the value of your product. They're already sold just by the time they land on it. And a few ways to optimize it, like mentioned, could be product listings, advertising, infographics, really descriptive sort of product descriptions, bullet points, a competitive brand story, compelling brand story as well. It talks about the heritage of your brand. There's quite a few key ways to really drive that additional conversion.
That's it. Anything? Oh, good, Becca, go on. I was about to tell you any more.
You invited me. You know I was going to start talking. I think from my perspective, you know, the reason that optimizing for conversion is so important is because everything changes so often on Amazon. You know, we're looking at new algorithms as we come into the new year. So I would never sit and be happy and content with what you've got. If you think, yeah, I've got a great conversion rate, I've got great sales coming through, don't lie on your laurels. Like, we've got other stuff coming, your category's going to start changing, everything will start jumping ahead. So optimization is one of the things I'm talking to my team about, doing it every quarter. So even if that's just new keywords that have dropped in or new ways of looking at different ways of selling, that's why it's really key and really important, is because everything around you is going to be moving. So you need to keep up with your competition.
Yeah, it's an important part. Sorry, it's not just a fire and forget type method. It's constantly evolving, seasonality, deal events, different kind of introduction from Amazon, whether it's Black Friday, Prime Day 2.0, Christmas. Yeah, there's a lot of refinements that constantly need to be added to sort of match the conversion sort of criteria.
Something you said, Travis, was really interesting. I love the way you took it right back to basics. It's the number of people that look at your product page that then actually buy something. That's your conversion rate. I used to have a mantra in a business that I worked in, that e-commerce brands don't achieve revenue. What they achieve is traffic. The traffic then converts to an order, and there's an average order value. And if you times traffic by conversion rate by average order value, that gives you your revenue. So if you try to drive this growth of your business, you cannot just turn up today and go, give me more revenue. You have to drive more traffic, more conversion, or increase your average basket value. Basket value, I think, is a lot harder to do on Amazon because you don't really have a basket value. It's an items per order kind of metric. But isolating that conversion metric and thinking really deeply about how can I get more people when they view my product to buy my product, that's one of the three levers to growth one of the only three levers to growth that you have in any e-commerce business. So for me, it's absolutely at the heart of that. I mean, I know, Jake, you spend your entire day talking to clients about traffic. I guess that's the role of advertising manager. But why is that conversion rate that then follows traffic important to you as an advertiser?
Yeah, I think one of the important considerations from an ad perspective, particularly when you're allocating a marketing budget and you've got, you know, your ads in full flow, ultimately you're paying for a large portion of that traffic. So that's where it's really important to get the most bang for your buck from advertising, just to really focus on that conversion rate. Because if you're paying for that traffic, and often in case of Amazon, you pay quite a lot for that traffic, you want to maximize those visitors to your PDPs on Amazon.
I guess that then makes it quite pivotal. I know we're probably talking some real fundamental basics here. I guess that's pivotal to the success of any advertising campaign. CPCs do vary. It's a bidding-based model, but that's out of your control and relatively static for a period of time. Actually shifting that conversion rate, I guess that's the sole, maybe not the sole lever, but a major lever to increasing ROAS, ROI, reducing TACOS, whatever term you want to use. But it feels like that's absolutely the middle of making any advertising campaign successful.
Definitely, it can make or break campaigns, and as well as, you know, getting the ROI efficiency with advertising and conversion. It's important to consider that Amazon, as well as your organic listings, has a quality score for your adverts. So if you're trying to promote your adverts and drive traffic, they're not converting, then ultimately with the highest bids in the world, Amazon are going to show those adverts to less and less customers. So it's important to factor in your quality score of your adverts and the internal relevance score of those as well.
That's interesting, Jake. My next question is going to be around KPIs, around conversion. How do you start to understand if you've got a conversion issue, or I guess the flip side, a conversion opportunity? you've touched on that quality score from the ads campaign potentially being something. But I mean, for me, you've got to look at your conversion rate. If as a brand you're not tracking conversion rate, I'm still amazed how few are, because they don't look at Amazon traffic. They look at sales and revenue, not traffic, and therefore conversion. So for me, yeah, you've got to be tracking that conversion rate. But what else, Trav and Becca, should brands be looking at to understand if they've got a conversion issue or equally an opportunity to do something better?
I think, you know, from my perspective, from a seller perspective, it's the whole customer journey. So everything that Jake's doing is actually to drive to drive visibility. And what we need to start looking at from the first point is click-through rate. So there'll be stuff that you can do that is on the results page that will drive both conversion and click-through. So click-through rate is one really big one. And then I would be looking at understanding from what point people are dropping off on that customer journey. So if you're getting basket ads but not conversions, you've got a problem there that you need to be identifying. So while I would say conversion rate is a key KPI, and I have to always say that slowly because it's the other aspects as well. So, you know, are you finding that because you don't have a Prime offering, you'll be able to see in seller that how many of the people that added to basket had a Prime account and then didn't purchase? So there's quite a lot of detail in there that you can start to look at. I would also start to look at some of the category insights that are available through seller, because they'll be able to tell you your category averages. So they'll be able to tell you whether or not you're anywhere near, you're overachieving, underachieving from a conversion point of view. And that's kind of a great way to start to benchmark. It's really tough. Quite a lot of people like to look at conversion year on year, and it's quite a difficult one to be able to master year on year because the categories change so much. You know, we're getting thousands of new ASINs in categories. RRPs are changing all the time. Year on year is not a metric that you can really be looking at. So I would be looking at category averages. I would be looking at what's your kind of 90-day run rate from a conversion point of view. If you've seen a really big spike, what happened there? Was it Prime Day, and on Prime Day did you do big discounts, or is it just you got a massive influx in traffic? If it's the influx in traffic, you might need to invest more in ads. So it's a much bigger picture, I think, than just looking at that 1 percentile. And I think that's what's more important, is understanding that whole, where do I get them and where do I lose them? And if I don't lose them, how did I convert them and not the others?
Yeah, no, and I fully echo what Becca's saying, especially when it comes to conversion rate. Look at your category averages. If you have access to an AVS, if you have access to a VM, or if you have access to some dark magic data that you have that gives you the category averages, then make sure that you use that and sort of hit those benchmarks. I think also taking it back to the customer, looking at your returns rate. If you have a huge returns rate on certain products, do a root cause analysis. Why are these returns coming in? Is it your product descriptions that aren't accurate? In the case of fashion, for example, is your sizing off? Is your infographics off? Is your information off? Are customers buying a product on a false assumption that it's going to solve something when it doesn't? So the returns rate's also a big one. Look at your page views and your sessions. If you have high amounts of page views and high amounts of sessions, but your conversion rate sort of staying stagnant, then you need to sort of change and do something different. So maybe lower your prices, maybe go a little bit deeper on the information that you're providing to customers. There's quite a few metrics like that that can really sort of hone sort of what the customer is exactly thinking. But I think the returns rate would be a really good one. The conversion rate's a good one. And then the session percentages as well. I'm trying to think if there's any other ones. Click-through rate we already mentioned, but I'd say those are sort of the key fundamentals. If you start seeing dips and changes in those, then it's probably time to do a bit of an analysis internally.
I would also be looking at kind of what key search terms people are searching for to click through to get to you. You know, that's one that will really align with stuff from an ads perspective. But, you know, if you're a product, so let's take Velcro, for example, everyone's going to be looking for Velcro as a Velcro brand. But as a independent seller that sells hook and loop, not Velcro, God, I hope we don't get in trouble for using Velcro 40 times on this call. You know, someone that a consumer's not going to start looking for hook and loop, even though as a seller, you'll never be able to use the word Velcro. A consumer's become so tied with hook and loop being Velcro that they're going to just automatically search for Velcro. So it's about looking further down the funnel as well, what else you can start to search for. Look at your key search terms that people are coming and where they're converting, because it's more important, I think, profit is the biggest conversation we have at the moment anyway. If we're bidding against, I mean, Jake would probably be able to find for me, but like the cost of bidding against Velcro or against some small, less well-known brands probably allows you to be able to convert easier because people are not as tied to that brand.
Yeah, and if I can actually, just add one more thing on the returns, it's probably reviews and ratings would also be a big one. I think it's kind of a bit underappreciated in some terms because If you've got a great review count and you've got a great rating count, awesome. It might just be like, okay, well, we're doing well. But maybe do a bit of a deep dive on what we are doing really well and sort of hone that across the other ASINs, if it is sort of a parent ASIN or you've got children ASIN or you've got similar products. Again, if it's negative, use the voice of the customer, use your vendor manager, use your AVS to really deep dive into what the customer is saying. So analyze those reviews and ratings. Don't just, oh, okay, it's a bad rating, maybe it's a customer where it wasn't fit for purpose. Really look at those reviews and ratings and identify the root cause and see, do a little bit of self-reflection and say, is it us or is it just the customer and maybe they just bought it because it was a mistake purchase type thing. So that would be another addition, I would say.
I know we're going to come on to techniques for testing in a second, but you just prompted me there, Trav. I think reviews and ratings are an absolute goldmine of data to improve conversion. When you've got a business that's got 100 reviews, 100 ratings, that listing is full of information as to why the customer loved that product. So many brands miss the point of harvesting that, building that into their listing optimization to tell people why everybody else loves that product, call out all the features, all the benefits that are resonating with people. Goldmine of data, super quick conversion win just to pull that data out, and some great AI tools that can pretty much take any product, summarize all the positives, all the negatives for you at the click of the button and do that work for you. But hope I haven't stolen any of your guys' thunder when we come to talk about tools and techniques. But Becca, something you said there was really interesting. I come from a world of direct-to-consumer e-commerce where conversion rate optimization is a 15-year-old topic. It's been done to death. But it lives in e-commerce predominantly on that product detail page. And when you work on that product detail page, you're working purely in isolation of when somebody views my product, can I get them to buy more? The Amazon ecosystem is really different. When you talked about click-through rate, one of the key drivers of conversion on Amazon is going to be that main product image because it sits so high up on the mobile device when you're browsing, sits so prominent on the PDP on the desktop when you're browsing. It's also the image that features in every single advert that Jake will do. So it's not, you can't just think about conversion on Amazon in pure isolation of on the product detail page, how to get more people to buy it. Because you could change something there that makes people buy it more, that could then kill your ad campaign from a click-through rate point of view. Hopefully not. Hopefully both things go hand in hand. But on Amazon, it's not an isolated journey. You need to be looking at pre-page, or traffic in, on-page, and post-page to understand that the right KPIs and data points to make a difference.
I could absolutely do a whole webinar on why imagery and branding is important on Amazon. I'm happy to take the whole time if you want me to, guys. But the way that I've always looked at Amazon, and it's potentially because of the background that I've got and because I've come through that kind of more of a marketeer's route, I always think of the Amazon search results are your standard shop, your main shopping street in the centre of your town. They are your shop windows, so your main image is your shop windows. So you all know if you were walking down Oxford Street, Selfridges would look amazing, and that's the shop that draws you in because of the window. That's essentially where you align your photography to. And then something that has kind of come to light in probably the past 6 to 12 months is, keyword bashing used to be huge, getting as many keywords into that title, but actually reducing that title length and bringing the key keywords, really going to have to slow down there, into the start of your title will really help with your conversion rates, because what you're really getting is someone who's looking for a black cup. If you don't mention black cup until the end, you're dropping down the search results because you're not getting that relevancy click through. So always treat your product listings as though you are a traditional retailer in terms of brick and mortar, and then think about how Amazon is different from e-commerce. You're completely right, Andy. We're fighting with people, whereas if you've got someone on your own website, it's not the same journey because they're already on your website.
It's a relatively contained property on your own website. You're in a certain four walls, whereas on Amazon, it's very easy to click off, not just click off and buy something else, but click off and buy something else from somebody else. And then that's a fundamental different setup.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, and I've got to agree there as well. I think with the way everything is going nowadays, with the attention spans literally going down, I know mine has with like mobile phones, you want the result as quick as possible. So I think also that's where images sort of come into play. Yes, title and yes, bullet points, but that's also maybe from a bit more of an SEO perspective to actually find the products. But then if you look at the product listings and the images are dull, boring, they don't give much information, there's no infographics related to them, you're not going to probably generate a purchase like that. That's also having images that maybe describe the product, describe the uses, the materials it's made out of, who it's fit for purpose for. All those good things are probably also a key indicator of if it's going to convert a customer or not. So obviously finding it through titles, bullet points, and also conversion to an extent. But I think images, especially on mobile shoppers, which is I think about 70% of shoppers on Amazon now, all on mobile, it's all visual. So if you're looking at an image and it entices you and it gives you all the information at the glance of a screen, you're probably going to convert because you're not going to want to deep dive and try and find the information you're looking for.
It's really interesting. Jake and I were on a call yesterday around just some end of month client wrap ups, and we were looking through the difference between one of our products and a main competitor. And all our products are Amazon Square. You know, that's what Amazon have always formatted. That's where we should be. Our competitor has switched to portrait, so they've actually got what I would call now perfect for iPhone, perfect for swiping an iPhone. So it's something that we talked about yesterday as a tactic for us to try and almost mirror that layout as much as possible to see if it has an impact on conversion rate.
Yeah, hold that thought, because my next question what's going on. Well, how do you actually do conversion rate optimization on Amazon? I probably want to split this into, I guess, 3 different threads. You know, what can you optimize? What kind of assets should you be looking at optimizing? How do you run that kind of testing? Tools and techniques. I think the giveaway, yes, there is, but I'm limited. And does that differ on seller and vendor? So let's maybe start with the first part of that. You know, if I am looking at optimizing a listing for conversion, what can I optimize? What should I optimize, and how can I go about it?
Yeah, I think fundamentally it comes down to this can sound really bold, but come down to the product. So similar to where you were saying, Andy, around ratings and reviews. If you're looking at those reviews and you're going, oh, well, they've not done this right and they've not done that right, and there's obviously something in your listing that's not helping the consumer. So that's definitely where I would start in terms of doing some review analysis. But for me, the key areas are imagery. People generally won't scroll. It's just a thing. There's a reason Amazon put add to basket halfway down the page when you are on mobile, and it's because people will generally look at the title, look at the image, and then buy. So that's where you need to be spending the core amount of your time. I'm sure Rob, if he's watching, our head designer, will love to hear that. Main image is a big one. It's something that Jake and I have kind of had an ongoing conversation about for the past sort of 12, 18 months, is about being a little bit more clever with your main image and putting a couple of keywords into some of your labels. Or it started in the printer category, I think, Jake, where you and I had started to talk about that kind of example of a piece of paper coming through with keywords on the paper. Just be a little bit smarter with how you can talk about keywords. And then bullet points for me is the key one. 18 months ago, we were looking at big, chunky 3-liners for a bullet point. Strip that back, make it as easy as possible. And they're kind of your key ones. You're not going to be able to impact reviews and ratings unless you sort your product out. So if you've got loads of negative reviews, that's for me a conversation of you going and having a look at your problem and what's wrong with your product and how do you fix your product. The stuff that you can start to influence is think about the customer journey. So what do they really want to know? How big is stuff? How small is stuff? What does it feel like? What's it smell like? That kind of emotional content, I think, is where I would kind of lean towards. And then, you know, your bullets and your titles are about the facts, the USPs, and calling all of that out.
Yeah, and I agree with Becca. I think the emotions part comes into the enhanced brand content, the A+ content, your brand store, where you can really sort of talk and brag about who you are as a brand, what benefits your product brings, who it's targeted at. Is it made of sustainable materials? Is it ethically sourced? Is it non-toxic? Is it available for all ages? You know, really, really deep dive into the extra benefits that your product brings. But then also on the brand store, obviously Jay will talk about this if needed, but no competitors can advertise in your brand store. So that really gives you the opportunity to really talk about who you are as a brand. Are you a heritage brand? Are you locally made in the UK? Are you locally made in Europe? I think customers nowadays more and more are starting to gravitate a lot more to heritage brands, locally made brands, ethically sourced brands, because they know it's not made in some mass factory somewhere halfway across the world with potential inferior quality. It's made local, it's made proud. So be able to exemplify that in your brand story and your A+ listings as well.
One thing that we didn't touch on, and I think it's almost a no-brainer of conversion, is your price.
Yeah, I mean that
has to be the biggest one.
Yeah, but I think for me, you know, price starts with click-through rather than conversion. So if someone's already clicked on your listing, they're not missing the price. It's just whether or not your content reflects the price. So everyone who's sat on any of our webinars will know that I will fundamentally sit here and say, don't reduce your products, keep them as high price as possible, run at full price, don't do any discounts, don't participate in Black Friday. That's just something that I've always said. You should be able to trade an Amazon business at full price. If you can, it means that your RRP is generally out of kilter with the rest of the category.
Yeah, no,
If someone has come from, sorry, Trav.
no, that's my bad.
Search results and gone onto your listing, they understand that the price that they would be paying. It's then making sure that all the content surrounding that makes sure that they don't click off to buy a cheaper product. Obviously, some of that can be backed up by some of Jake's work, which I'm sure he'll talk about. But it's making sure that people understand the value of the product and not go, actually, it's too expensive, I'm not going to buy it.
Yeah, and I think that sort of leads into what I was saying. Obviously, vendor, you can't dictate the price with price matching. Amazon sets it, so that's a whole different sort of ball game. But I think perceived value is also an important part. So if you're running really deep promotions with Amazon and you smashing your price at 50% off with a promotion, is it going to give perceived value to the customers, or customers just thinking, oh, this is a bit of a cheapy product that they're just trying to get rid of? So I think perceived brand value is also a really important part where it plays into pricing. Yes, you want your price to be competitive. Yes, you want to convert sales, but not at the detriment of your brand image. You don't want to come across as a wholesaler, cheap brand. You still want to come across as a professional sort of prestige brand if that is your goal. But also, yeah, when it comes to the pricing side of things, I think especially on Sally, you have a lot more leeway. Vendor, sadly not, but yeah, just your perceived brand value, always keep that in the back of your mind. You don't want to come across as a cheap retailer or an inferior one with low quality products because your pricing's just literally through the floor. You've gotten into a pricing war with competitors or with price matching. So it's also just something to keep in the back of mind.
We've had sorry, we all want to talk about price. We've had many conversations with clients where they've said, but people will pay that price on my website. Okay, fine, but you're not on your website, you're on Amazon, and everyone else is £2 cheaper than you, so you're going to have to either play the game or pull the product off Amazon.
Yeah.
That was very blunt.
Talking about pricing and comparison leads into a really important point as well. Something that's sometimes overlooked when we talk about conversion rate and the product detail page is having the option to have less opportunity for customers to go to competitive products, and that is in the defensive advertising. So if at any point you check your product detail page and you've got your main competitors advertising in prime real estate, the lower price and more reviews, then naturally that a lot of your customers are going to funnel out, go off to buy other products as well. So that's an important piece to improving overall conversion rate. Probably a metric that's overlooked as a success measure is to understand that if you fill those spaces with your own products or a cross-sell opportunity, how you can improve that on-page conversion to remove that opportunity for customers to go off to buy from competitors.
So as I've been listening to that, guys, there's loads I'm taking from this. I think Trav and Becca, in your kind of overview, the product detail page has to do a great job of telling me this product is to me. I kind of break what I heard you two say into two areas. You've got to functionally tell me the product does what I'm looking for. So I'm buying a great coffee mug. Is it small, medium, large? Does it hold copy? Is it waterproof? You've kind of got to cover that functional stuff off of, yes, that's the product I'm looking for. Then there's a persuasive part of that. Yeah. There's the making me feel that's the brand I want to buy into. The product's going to make me feel good. It will make a difference to my life. It will add value in some way. The price point, I love. I think that's really interesting. I don't think there's a right price point. A high price point can kill conversion because it's too expensive. A low price point can kill conversion because it's too cheap and inferior quality. So understanding the price point, I think, is really important. And Jake, you've talked really eloquently about plugging those leaky holes on the PDP and making sure that you're not inadvertently leaving holes open for people to lead to competition. As you guys are all talking through that, I'm visualizing the PDP in my head, and we've talked about images, bullets, descriptions, advertising slots. I can't think of anything on that PDP that we've not talked about as being open for a conversion improvement, I guess, apart from Amazon's logo in the search bar, which is completely off kind of piece and you can't go there. So it feels like the product detail page is an abundance of opportunity for testing. I want to come on to a second to talk about then how do you do that? Where do you prioritize? But there's one thing none of you talked about, which I've seen pop in the questions: stock.
Oh yeah.
yeah. Prime offering, stock availability. I mean, if you don't have stock, or if it's one of those nice messages available in 2 to 3 weeks, customers probably not going to convert that. The whole reason why people shop on Amazon is convenience. When you order something you already wanted yesterday, you know what I mean? It's like you want it as quick as possible. You want it as easy as possible. You want it as cheap as possible. So I think, yeah, the Prime offerings, one thing, stock availability is one thing, especially during peak season. You don't have to wait 2-3 days for your replenishment of protein powder or vitamins or birthday gift for someone, whatever it is. So yeah, stock availability is a fundamental part of it. And if you don't have it, I mean, firstly, your customer's not going to be able to buy it. Secondly, if they do buy it, they're not going to wait a week for it to come or get back into stock. They want that convenience factor. So yeah, it's a good shout, that part.
When I worked in fashion retail, we talked about stock fragmentation. So you might look at the black jumper and the black jumper's in stock, but if it's available in small, large and extra large, but not in medium, which is the most popular size in menswear, sales will go through the floor. Now, in an own brand direct consumer offering where there's 5 other black jumpers on offer, that might kill conversion on that product, but it doesn't destroy revenue because they go and buy another black jumper. On Amazon, that stock fragmentation, I think, often gets missed. People are looking at, is my parent in stock? They're not spotting, is my popular child in stock all the time? It's not that easy to get to that data, I don't think. And then the opportunity for the consumer to go and buy something else from somebody else is much, much greater on Amazon. The chance of losing a sale when you're out of stock is phenomenal.
No, it's a really interesting one because we always say, like, variations are the best thing to happen on Amazon. You want to get all your variants in a place, and we want, people to have the easiest shopping journey ever. On the flip side of that, if you've got 50% of your variations out of stock, you're doing more damage. So should you then, in theory, split the listing, protect yourself more? Because if you're and Jake, correct me if I'm wrong, but from an ads perspective, if you're advertising let's use the black jumper example, I don't think you'd necessarily be able to highlight the size. So you'd be looking at a black jumper ad, clicking through, and then not being able to buy your size. If that happened and you've got a listing with 10 colours and the medium's out of stock in all 10 colours, you've lost that consumer and they're probably never going to come back to your brand. So it's quite a negative journey all the way through.
They are going to go back to Jake and ask why their ROI is absolutely shot and why P and ad budget up the wall, because it's a great example of where the different metrics, or not different metrics, different stages of the journey on Amazon are fundamentally linked.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I've definitely worked with some clothing brands in the past, and there's a reason that clothing notoriously hasn't worked so well on Amazon, and it's because exactly that. You might be spending money to drive traffic, but with 1 or 2 sizes up stock, you've effectively alienated half of your audience that couldn't buy even if they wanted to. So that's always a tricky one. I think that just, while we're talking about stock, another factor that can be overlooked is stock in depth and how that might affect your disbursement of your stock across. This is probably a lot more pertinent in the US and larger territories where we see if you've got a very small stock holding, Amazon can only really spread that amongst a number of fulfillment centers, and that's going to affect your ultimate delivery promise for different locations. So if you've got stock in depth with large stock quantities held across the country, across the UK and in different countries, and what you'll find is no matter who's shopping, whether they're up in the north of Scotland or south of England, they still get that 1-day delivery promise, and that can be a big factor that's often overlooked when you look at the geo ranking involved in Amazon as well.
Yeah, it's a really good shout, Jake. Actually, something very difficult to get to that data on to understand if somebody's living in the Outer Hebrides, what is their lead time when you're sense checking it from an office in London or Leeds and seeing that there's plenty of stock available. It's actually, you don't really understand it. You can't control the impact that has on conversion. Right, let's talk about how we do A/B testing then. So I come from a D2C world where I could have gone and picked 15 different vendors who provided A/B testing technology. I could have tested anything on the website. And it was pretty much a buyer's market. It's not quite the same on Amazon, or hasn't been historically. Where are we at now? What tools do Amazon provide for A/B testing, and does that differ across seller and vendor?
Yep. So up until probably about 6 months ago, maybe a year at most, it wasn't available to vendor. But now in the last sort of few months, they've started rolling it out to pretty much all vendor accounts is manager experiments. So you can actually run on-site A/B testing. So it includes your titles, your bullet points, your brand story, your A+, your images, pretty much the whole wheelhouse of metrics. So you can actually do A/B testing now through vendor, which is quite exciting. I've seen good results with it, in all honesty. Only caveat to that is make sure you give yourself enough time to test those results, because it could be anywhere from 2 months to 4 months. We've seen up until 5 months where Amazon's still running those experiments for you. Obviously, they're looking at a huge population size, which is great. So you get quite an accurate rating, but things like that do take time. So yeah, make sure you plan ahead of it. Don't do it in season, for example, because you probably will get your results by the time the season ends, and then you're playing catch up for next year. So make sure you give yourself enough time for your A/B test. And if you want to do something for testing in summer, then maybe start going towards mid-springtime, going into summer type thing, to give yourself enough time to sort of align into the new season, into the new quarter, into the new sort of trading period as well. So yeah, A/B testing from vendor side of things got a good stamp of approval from my side. But yeah, like I said, only caveat is give yourself enough time and don't expect the results day to day. It does take time.
Yeah, I think for me, what underpins that is that statistical validity. I think that's the word I can't say, Becca. When you say key KPIs, try to string S's together, it just doesn't work. I'm going to type it out and pop it in the chat. But it's got to be statistically valid. Jake and I have similar conversations with clients when we're talking about day parting. You need a certain number of conversions for the data to stack up. And in a true A/B test, what you're actually testing is in real time different buckets of consumers. So if Trav came to my PDP, he'd get one experience. Becca, you'd get another. Jake, you'd get another. And you're trying to see, almost separating out where the customers come from, where they live, whether they're male, female, what day of the week it is, what hour it is. Try to make sure that you truly separate those consumers in a truly independent way. And then you need enough conversions to work out, well, is that test actually valid? Because you might get Trav on a good day where he's happy to spend 50 quid on a product, and Becca on a bad day where she doesn't want to spend 50 quid on a product. So you need the volume through it. And I've maybe got a slightly different view to you on there, Trav. Maybe this is because I'm coming from a higher volume D2C background where it was the whole conversion testing industry was a bit more mature than it is on Amazon. I think you should always be running conversion optimization tests, because if you have a test running and you are truly splitting it into randomized sample pots, you can very quickly see, is one of my variants, if it's just a new title, is it just a new main image? If that variant is driving slightly better conversion and there's enough volume to make that statistically valid, in the moment you can still win and you can still drive better trading out of that period. Whether that learning then becomes statistically viable to take forward out of season because you've been dealing with a Christmas shopper rather than a January sale shopper, I think that's a different question. But I think when you've got, particularly you've got volume, high volume lines, but I think there's a real clear argument for trying to always eke an extra 0.5% out of conversion if you can do, but you've got to have the volume to make it work.
Yeah, fully agreed. I think that sort of leans back to the fact we mentioned right sort of at the beginning. This isn't a fire and forget sort of practice. It's constantly evolving. You need to constantly readjust your business, readjust your brand listings, readjust your titles, your images, and constantly evolve with it. You can't just sit and be like, cool, we're winning, guys, mission accomplished. No, you need to continually evolve and grow with it. So yeah, that's a good shot on your side, Andy, 100%.
I would caveat though, I would say that you need to be cautious around this. I wouldn't be changing my title one week and then the week after changing my main image. Like on Amazon specifically on Amazon, if you're making changes on a week by week basis, you're doing more damage than just letting stuff run for a little bit of time. With Amazon Seller, you have the ability to be able to go in and stop the experiments and publish stuff live. But if the volume's not there, you won't even get the option to be able to do A/B testing through the managed experiment tools. So my counsel then would be just try changing your title, monitor it for 4 weeks. If in 4 weeks you've seen an uplift in conversion, great, keep your title, move on to your image. I think the key is that, especially from seller, like across our client base where we've had A/B testing running, I haven't seen like substantial results where I'm absolutely blown away by a change, and that shows you the nuance around Amazon. But it's also, like you say, Andy, the volume has to be there for you to be able to test it. But then if you set a marriage experiments live the day before Black Friday, going to skew everything. So just, I kind of lean into both of you guys where I'm going, Trav's right, you don't want to do it when you've got Prime Day coming or Black Friday coming, because you're going to get such an influx in traffic, it's going to skew everything. But on the other side, if you leave it and do it for 3 months at a time, you're never going to move anywhere because you're waiting too long for the data. I don't personally use A/B testing on Amazon. That might be terrifying to everyone, because from a seller perspective, the results are 2% here or 2% there. It's not such a massive amount that you go in, I couldn't have just changed this. If you know your business enough as well, you'll know if sales start dropping off your bestseller, it's because you've changed something. So I'm not saying don't ever go down the route of A/B testing, but I would definitely look at how conversion plays into your wider Amazon strategy. If you're here just to drive deliverables and just to drive brand awareness, I wouldn't even touch A/B testing. I would be going, that's something for periphery when we rechange our strategy. But I would definitely be cautious around the A/B testing, because as with anything in Amazon, they're not really going to give you a massive amount of data. They just kind of go, well, this version was better because you had one more conversion than the other. Do you want us to publish it?
I think you've also got, to some of the points you talked about earlier, you've got to be really careful with certain changes on Amazon. A/B testing is measuring for conversion improvement. if you change the title of a listing, you're going to affect your rankings. If you change the main image, you're going to affect your click-through rates from organic and from advertising campaigns. Amazon's experiment system is only measuring to conversion. They're not at any point going to go, hey guys, you're going to be 50% up on conversion here, but by the way, you're going to be 75% down on your click-through rate and your organic ranking is going to drop. So I think although there's a great tool here from Amazon around conversion, I think it points to me, I think you'll be very careful where you use it and what you expect from it. I know you've not said it here, Becca, but you did say it in the build up to this. If your listings are crap, don't try and optimize them because there's such headroom to be. So don't try and A/B test your way to optimization. Just go and do a good listing. Don't see this as the only way to progress. For me, conversion optimization on Amazon kicks into play when you're mature, when you've done all the basics very, very, very well. And even then, you've got to manage it with a certain degree of caution and a very clear roadmap to it. So you don't go and knack your ads click-through rate. Don't go and kill your organic rankings off the back of putting a couple of percent on a conversion rate on a PDP.
I think there's a really good point actually around, especially for this time of year. And I'm sure Trav and Jake will have opinions on this as well. Don't just put gifting to your title. If you haven't got a gifting product, don't start leaning into Christmas gift or stocking filler, or just let it be. You can sell through a gifting process, a gifting season, without having gift in your title and your bullet points. There's no validity in just absolutely trying to go for the highest keywords if you're never going to convert for them. You're going to do so much damage that when you come into the new year and you take all of that out, your rankings are going to step back so far because you've not converted on any keywords around gifting that you're going to be struggling to regain the ground of where you were. So please, unless you have a pure gifting product, don't start playing with Father's Days here or Easter's coming or Mother's Day. Just be realistic around what your product actually is.
Yeah, that's
just add to that, Becca. That's something we come across in advertising often. We see people get excited about these big trends. Christmas gifts for dad, Christmas gifts for husband, and the search volume goes through the roof. And they want to try and target that traffic, as everyone does. And from an ads perspective, it becomes really expensive. But on Amazon, there's only 3 to 5 products which are going to win in those for those terms, and they're going to be very cheap products, very generic, socks, novelty socks, or something like this as well. So going after those terms is going to be a mute exercise. I think if you've got a product that has a niche to it, and then you can attach a longer tail keyword that is perhaps sits in, golf gifts for Christmas, you might, do some experimentation on there. But yeah, definitely can be a costly mistake to push that in ads if you're not hitting up those conversions.
Yeah, and I think, like Becca mentioned, it's just products that are fit for purpose. If you are selling a gift set and it has shampoos and shower gels and body lotions, and you're going to give it to your mum or you're going to give it to your nan, that's perfectly fine. Feel free to put gifting in, but don't just tag it on because you think customers are going to buy it. The product needs to be fit for purpose, and also hopefully you would have released your products at least a few months before to get your seller rank up, to get the reviews and ratings up, to get the sort of relevance up. You're not just releasing it in time for Christmas for a gift set, because even then that's just pretty much business suicide. It's not going to work type that. You need to build up that seller rank, you need to build up that sales velocity, you need to build up that relevance, that stock holding, the reviews and ratings, and then by the time Christmas does come or a gifting period does come, it's already on top. Their customers don't even need to search that it's gifting because it is already there in the seller rank.
Yeah. Great points, Trav. Thank you very much. Before we go into audience Q&A, I was keeping a very close eye on time here. Jake, I've got a couple of bits that might feel a little bit off piece, but are still conversion related. And so this is coming from a conversation you and I had, I think last week after you came back, or the week before when you came back from Amazon in Texas. Back in my D2C world, we used to talk a lot about attribution. When somebody clicked on an advert, what actually drove them to make that sale of the product. Now, Amazon, as I'm aware, and has always been historically a last click wins attribution. So when you're looking at ads campaigns, you can only really see what drove the last click, not what drove interest higher up the funnel. It sounds like there's plans to change that. How can I really start to understand what parts of my advertising campaign are driving the first click, the middle click, the last click, and ultimately driving conversion in the broadest sense?
This is a really exciting topic at the moment with advertising, particularly when we're looking at conversion rates and how different ad formats can affect that conversion rate through advertising. As you said, Amazon historically has always had a last click attribution. So whatever ad that they clicked on last, that gets the attribution model, and you don't really historically get the impact that other ad formats along that purchase journey might have had. So one of the big announcements at Amazon Unboxed was them introducing their Amazon Marketing Cloud, AMC, for sponsor products and advertising. And it finally gives us access to multi-touch attribution advertising model. So that allows us to see the customers and their ultimately their paths to conversion as well. Because we know that with certain brands and products and categories in Amazon, it might take, several touch points before they make a conversion. And now we get that wealth of data to understand that a customer that clicked on a sponsored brand ad, for example, and then maybe a sponsored display advert, then came on to purchase on a sponsored product advert, they may be 1.8x more likely to convert than a customer that only clicked on a sponsored product advert as well. So I know historically we've understood that when a brand has a full funnel advertising strategy, we see a large increase in sales, and sometimes it's only the bottom of funnel ads that unfairly get all the glory in that situation. So it's really useful to understand that how we can leverage different paths to conversion to ultimately improve conversion rate, which is going to impact both the advertising and the organic side of things.
You just made me realise, Jake, one really obvious point we didn't talk about earlier. One of the best ways to improve your conversion rate is to kill your non-performing advertising campaign. Stop sending traffic that doesn't convert will, on paper, put your conversion rate up. But typically you find that's in the upper funnel where people are saying my ROAS is lower, people aren't converting as high. That's not because it's not converting. That's because Amazon's current attribution model doesn't give any credit to advertising campaigns, let's call it, that drive the first click, the middle click, the click in between that one. It awards everything to pretty much, well, I wouldn't say it's always to the last click, but by definition, that's often the very, very bottom end of the funnel. So I would say here, you don't go killing traffic just for the sake of improving the conversion rate. You've got to have a much more holistic view on what is actually driving the overall conversion. And thankfully, Amazon's model sounds like it's going in that direction relatively quickly.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the information and the data we've lacked previously. So it's a really exciting time to be able to make much more informed decisions on advertising and find out what's really, driving those conversions and getting customers to commit to a branded search a week later or 2 weeks later.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jake. Again, really conscious of time. We have a good list of questions and some of them quite in depth. So let's jump into audience Q&A. We'll try and get through as many as we can in the next kind of 12 or 13 minutes. We're going to take this one first from Graham. If you have a market leader, organically ranked number one and the most expensive in a category, so that price point's coming in again, is it worth spending money on generic keywords where you're competing against lower priced products and potentially making yourself look expensive? Conversion rate on those keywords is low and quite costly.
Can I just answer this from a strategic point of view? Depends on what your goal is, if I'm totally honest. If you want to maintain your number one slot, absolutely. You should be bidding on everything to keep your number one slot. If all you're bothered about is maintaining profit, maybe not. It all comes down to what your top line strategic goals are. I'm sure Jake will have a different view on this. You may not want to be bidding as high for these terms, but my kind of 2 pence on this would be strategically, if you want to maintain number one, you should absolutely be fighting the fight to stay there.
Yeah, defensive advertising is a big thing. You see it that time and time again now on competitors' listings where you might sort of lose a sale because they transfer it to another sort of listing that's advertising on your listing. So defensive part is massive, essentially, when it comes down to display pages. Again, I'm not a advertising guru, but that's also just saying how to put on there that, yeah, defensive categories are super important to make sure that you don't convert those sales, or should rather lose those sales to a competitor or to a lower price point item. Jake, sorry, I think I cut you off there.
I would just add into this, always with advertising, you've got a wealth of data, so follow the data. So my first question in this example would be, are you actually driving conversions for those generic search terms? If you're not, and you just want to hold that space, then probably it's not worth your time. But if they are significantly contributing to your revenue, then you're going to want to hold those spots. I think one important piece of information here, and certainly where you can introduce some experimentation, is looking how you can potentially reduce your spend around these generic search terms while maintaining sales velocity. And there's going to be a sweet spot and a fine balance there. So whether you're leveraging tech or doing it manually, you can track lowering your CPCs on these generic search terms and seeing if you still maintain your visibility. So in the ads console, you might be looking at top of search impression share as your metric and the number of conversions and click-throughs. But definitely, you know, we've worked with brands to bring down CPCs on some of their more expensive keywords, particularly branded keywords, without necessarily impacting sales value and conversion, but having a positive impact as well. So maybe that's the first place to experiment and trial.
Thank you, guys. I think, Becca, I tend to side with you on this one. Start with what are you trying to achieve and why would you then go after those keywords? If you're trying to defend market share, yes, you probably should be holding those keywords. If you're trying to grow market share, yes, you should. If you're trying to attract new customers to the brand, then absolutely yes, they come through generic keywords. And if you're on the seller model rather than the vendor model, you can now start to pull data together on new customer acquisition and understand how that cohort behaves. I think some of the points Jake and I were talking about before we came into the Q&A, the reason those conversion rates on those keywords will look quite low is because they're typically upper to mid funnel keywords are generics. I know your business, Graham, obviously, so I won't kind of go into it. I'll pick a generic category. If somebody's searching for coffee mugs and you're a brand of coffee mug in that category, if somebody's searching for coffee mugs, that's quite high early stage buying intent. Maybe coffee mugs is a bad example because it's not a repeat purchase. If it was coffee capsules, whatever it may be, to pull them in on the coffee capsules term might be very expensive. It might be loss making. But when they then come back searching for Nespresso because they love the Nespresso that they bought through generic, that's when it becomes very low cost to bring those customers back in. And where I think this new attribution model will start to help people that are in your position answer those questions, because I don't think it is going to be quite as low conversion or quite as costly as you feel it is. I think that's just what the data is showing you right now because of the lack of data that's available. So hopefully giving you a bit of food for thought on that one, Graham. I can see quite a few more questions from you coming in. If you don't mind, we'll jump onto a couple of other people and I'll get back to some of yours in a second, Graham. Adam has got a question. I think this one's coming in your direction, Jake. You talked earlier about the ad quality score. Where do we find it?
I wish I could give you an answer to this one. Unfortunately, I mean, if you've ever worked with Google Ads, this is something they give you directly. Essentially with Amazon, the internal relevancy score is exactly that. It's internal to Amazon, and one of the many data points they don't share exactly with you. I suppose even though you don't get a direct score, what you will find is a metrics improvement. So if you keep your bids static in Amazon, you're trying to be competitive, you might find some certain adverts where you've got really competitive bids. You know, they're much higher than the average bid for that section. You're still not getting impressions on Amazon because generally your ad relevancy score is very, very low, and Amazon doesn't want to show this this advert to customers who doesn't believe it's necessarily relevant. If your team or yourself does a lot of great work on the product page optimization, things like click-through and conversion rate, what you'll find is at the bid level, you'll get far more impressions, and your top search impression score will go up as well. So while you don't have access to the exact score, you can sort of definitely see the impact it has when you change certain things on your listing and pull different levers.
Thank you, Jake. I'm hoping the next one is a much more specific answer. If not, this whole webinar has been built on an absolute fallacy. How do I check my conversion rate? Please tell me that data is available somewhere.
If you're on seller, you can get this through business reports. However, based on a conversation Jake and I had yesterday, I've become too attuned to using our actual internal software, which calls it conversion. Amazon do not call it conversion. They call it, hang on, I'll have to pull it up. They call
unit session percentage.
Yes, unit session percentage. So that's your conversion rate through business reports.
And what I find is in business reports, it's an absolute dog's dinner to get to that data, Becca. And I'm going to back you on this one, because as our head of seller, you should have known what that was called. But, but I never look at Amazon for this data. Yeah. We use a separate reporting platform called Merchant Spring. We never try and sell on these webinars. If you want a demo of any of our tech, just drop us a line and we'll show you a demo and show you what we can bring to life. But we can see in that tech the traffic at an account level, the orders at an account level, and therefore conversion at an account level. We can also drill that down to a product by product level as well. So Becca, like you, I come from an e-commerce world. I call it conversion rate, not session win percentage. They're the same thing, but in Amazon it's session win percentage. In our reporting platform, it's conversion rate. But to get to it, if you can't find that data in business reports, it's orders divided by traffic, and that gives you your conversion rate. Absolutely, it's a real fundamental e-commerce metric that I think everybody should be tracking as one of their key three. Right, what else have we got coming in? Let's jump into. We'll take one of Graham's other questions. I think it's quite an interesting one. What software or AI tools should we be looking at to help free up time from manual data review to make informed decisions more quickly? And then maybe a second question: how effective is automated advertising software? So maybe we take the first part of that first. Tools, AI or software or tools that can simplify an Amazon business. We've just talked about Merchant Spring. I would say all day long that if we're going to throw one in each, that's mine. It's a great reporting platform. It gives you a helicopter view of how your Amazon business is performing and stops you having to delve into business reports where I genuinely spend no time whatsoever, because I find Amazon's reporting complicated. It's in 15 different reports when what you actually want to see is in one dashboard. I put a piece of reporting tech in place that shows me how my business is performing at the click of the button, and that will be Merchant Spring.
Yeah, I'd say mine, which I also use for personal reasons, which I'm sure everyone can sort of get behind, is Keeper. That, like we spoke about pricing. I mean, it's pretty basic. You don't even really need an account. You can just plug an ACE in. It gives you the historical pricing, but also beyond the sort of basic pricing sort of mechanism it speaks about, it also shows you, okay, during this time of the year, your price dropped. Okay, maybe our conversion rate was above then, but was it because it was Black Friday? Was it because it was a Christmas period? Did we drop it because it was a deal? Did we drop it because of price matching, because of competitors' actions? So I'd say Keeper is a fundamental to always have. Plus, it'll also just help you with your future personal Christmas shopping if you need to check pricing comparisons. But yeah, Keeper would probably be mine when it comes to a pricing sort of point of view.
Thanks, Trav. Anything from you to add, Becca?
Shulix is my favourite, or Shulex, whichever way you want to go. It's my favourite AI tool that's out there, along with ChatGPT, but it's a little bit different from an SEO and content point of view. But Shulex is amazing. You can do everything from a basic account where you would just get reviews. I think it's your top 25 reviews, and that's broken down into tone and understanding what the pros and cons are of your product and who's left a review, of the male, female, what kind of age they're at. But if you get into the paid version, you get so much more. So you get things like customer sentiment and what people are talking about your product. And it's a really great way of having a full view of what people think of you and your product. So if you took Merchant Spring off me, I would probably fall apart at the seams. But I think Shulex is the one where I would even put it up there, which is going to sound absolutely nuts to anyone who's on this call. I would pick Shulex over Helium 10, Jungle Scout, because I think that they're becoming a little bit outdated and a little bit, they're probably 3 to 4 years lacking behind other people. So Shulex is the one where I would be going absolutely banky cash there.
If I was to give one tip to, I'm going to come to you in a second, Jake, on the advertising part of this question, but if I was to give one tip off the back of this webinar, go and install Shulex, however you want to say it.
Whatever it is.
Run it against your best-selling product and pull the review sentiment and make sure that your main image, bullet points, and description call out the things that Shulex shows you are the reasons that customers are buying your product. It's an absolute goldmine of consumer sentiment data based on Amazon reviews, so you can get some really quick wins. Jake, can I come to you on the second part of this question then? How effective is automated advertising software in terms of keeping ad spend to an acceptable level of efficiency?
Say straight off the bat, it is incredibly effective and an absolutely necessary tool to be able to run ads at scale and run a full funnel ads approach. But that, of course, does come with a huge caveat, or at least a number of caveats, in the fact that, as with any software tool, the output you get from these tools is only as good as the input you put as well. So there's two schools of thought with advertising tech. One is a very much a hands-off, automated AI sort of algorithmic approach. That's generally not one that I'd recommend for the best results, because you don't have a lot to say in how different things happen, and you don't get the input knowing your business as well. So although we use a lot of ad tech, this is very much based around manual rule sets and understanding the business and the consumers as well. So it does allow us, several advantages. As I say, it allows us to operate at scale with that custom rule sets that we're able to put in place to make those efficiencies. And although there's a lot of manual input as well, where definitely can't compete is when you're managing thousands of keywords for a certain account, different advertising formats, and of course it allows you to optimize your campaigns 24/7 as well. So if there's certain thresholds hit, some product is spending or a keyword is spending without getting sales at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, it's going to make those changes for you. It doesn't have to wait until Monday. So they can work really well. They do require a good working knowledge and some solid input.
Yeah, I always describe the ad tech as like the bumpers on the bowling alley when you take your kids bowling. It's down to your advertising manager to work out that there's 10 pins down there that you need to go and knock down and work out what direction to throw the ball in. The ad tech is those little bumpers at the side that make sure things stay on track. Now, you might need to change your track, you might need to change lanes, you might need to change balls, and that's why you need an advertising manager running that. You can't set and forget, but equally, you can't just have an advertising manager running a campaign without any tech. The two things, for me, go completely hand in hand. As if by magic, we've landed bang on 1 hour. That's probably the best timed webinar we've run. I always kind of watch when people start to drop off because we've got another meeting to go to, but we've not quite got there. Just two quick messages from me, or three, quick messages. First of all, big thanks to everyone who's joined us in the audience today to listen, to contribute, to ask your questions. I know we've not got around everybody, but we'll do our usual follow-ups after this where one of our team will reach out to you, invite you to a conversation with us, and let us just answer those questions one-on-one if we've not got to you today. Secondly, thank you three guys for giving up an hour and a half of your morning. What people don't see is the prep we do beforehand and the prep that you guys all put into this whilst also having day jobs to do. So a huge thank you to all three for doing that.
To go, I'm really sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. And final message to everybody is, if you do need help with conversion and are looking how to get the most out of your Amazon listings, please just drop any of us a line. If you email us at hello@ventureforge.co.uk, we can then direct you either into Travis, into Jake, or into Becca, who will be happy to pick up your query and see how we can help. Thank you very much for joining us. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you on December's webinar when we've got that in the diary. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for your time.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.